Hi, I'm Rick from Rick's Taxidermy, working with Advanced Tanning Solutions. What we're going to do today is do a taxidermy skin on some snakes. This is a prairie rattler, a chocolate adder rattler, and a western rattler. This is my preferred tool. This is the Havel number 4 handle with the ring for counterweight, and this is the Havel number 23 blades. This is a fantastic product. You can pick them up on the internet. And another tool that I'm going to be using today is the flesher that comes in the kit. And so our first step is stretch out our snake and pull on him. You'll hear some popping. What we're trying to do is get rid of the rigor mortis. And then we're just going to take and flip the snake over. So our first step will be to come down here to the snake's vent. And we're going to do a back incision almost to the base of the rattle here. And to proceed through this, pull back on the vent to expose the opening. Place your blade as center as you can possibly make it, and make your incision. Slow, smooth cutting. We're not in a hurry. Like so. Then our next incision is going to be the other direction. And we're only going up a couple inches. Checking, make sure that I'm still center. And go up about another inch. From there, we're going to come down through the throat, or what they call the throat latch of the snake, which is along this line here. So we come in lifting the throat latch scale that's lined up with the back of the head. You make your first incision through that throat latch line. And then from here you proceed down the belly of the snake. Again, try to stay as centered as possible. It's not going to be a big deal if you do veer off a little bit here and there. You can always trim. But try to keep it as straight through the center as you can, leaving even measurement from the side scales and the belly scales. There. And this part is a little messy. Next, we're going to take and flip the head over this way and continue up the side and down the other. And once we've done that part, now we can connect our incision line, like so. From here, just get a hold of this skin back here, and we're going to peel ever so gently. One thing I did want to share with you guys is if the head is already off the snake, the process is the same except for just this part. So now you would continue to peel straight down until you can get a nice grip. Nice piece to be able to put your thumb on. And this is going to go pretty quick. And so from here, we're going to peel it like a banana. Get a nice firm grip on the neck and a firm grip on the skin. And pull away from each hand in a smooth, slow, controlled pull. When you made it about halfway down, reposition and continue. Once again, reposition, get a nice firm grip and continue. You're gonna feel when it stops, and that is, we're stopping at the vent. So from here, just give her a twist and cut through that vent muscle. Cutting that loose and free, and then doing the same on the other side. And while you're down here, you will smell a strong musky odor from any snake. This is the musk gland. You'll see it, it's just a little nodule. Go ahead and cut right through that because we'll get that through the fleshing process. And then continue to peel slowly until you reach that rattle. Now, of course, this part of the process is optional. You can cut the rattle off and have it as a keychain or whatever. Like I said in the beginning of the video, we're going to keep the rattle attached. Continue peeling until the base of the rattle. In this process, it can be tanned with or without the rattle. Now we just need to proceed to cut through the shaker muscles on top, and then twist to the underside and cut through there as well. Do not cut through the bone. From here, take, grab, and you're going to twist this opposite ways, and the rattle should come free. And there's the rattle. And as for the snake itself, some people would like to keep and eat this. To do so, you just grab this sack through here, peel, and gut your snake. When you've reached the end, go ahead and cut, and again, twist. And proceed to detach the head as well, if it's on the snake when you're doing this process. Cut and then push down firmly. Flip the snake and cut and push down firmly as well, until you hear that crack. Now you can peel and dispose of this properly. Putting it and rolling it inside of paper towel, plastic bag, whatever you have on hand. And then in the garbage. And from this point, you have your nice lunch. Go ahead and roll and wash, then freeze. So we're going to lay the snake out backside and scale side down for the fleshing process. Just open, unroll and untwist. You'll notice that your belly scales are going to be curving or laying over. You can try to push those out, but usually they just kind of stay that way. It's important during this fleshing process to get them moved at the start of the fleshing, and they should just roll out of the way. Getting our little scraper, and since this is a flat hide, we're going to use the flat side with the large round and a smaller round edge. And now to proceed, just roll those scales out of the way. Get in and go with the grain of those scales. And we're going to leave a little bit of the flesh here at the top. We'll come back and get that in a little while. It's important to have an extreme amount of patience while you're doing this fleshing part. There's no hurry. When you get in a hurry, you get in a jam. When you get in a jam, you tear your hide. And all we're doing is just short strokes with a 45-degree cant. We're working on one edge, and then at the same time we're working on the center and then the other edge. So to slow it down to show you, we'll go across the top, bring it back to the center, down, and then back down to the bottom with your rounded edge and go along that edge. And if it's not working with that round piece, you can lay it flat and peel it that way. Another way you can do this, might make it a little easier, is doing what we call halving. You only flesh half, and then you come down and flesh the other half, rather than doing the 3-stage. That choice is up to you. And remember, it is important to get off all the flesh. The more flesh you get off, the more soft and supple, and the better the tan will be. Don't be afraid to be able to get in there and pull off little chunks of flesh with your fingers. Or to peel it with your nail to get it going. Like I'm having troubles down in here. Scrape with my nail to lift and get a little lip, and then proceed. This is what I call pick and peel. Make sure to keep your scraper clean. It'll help lift and pull more of that flesh off at one time. We're gonna have to pick and peel here again. Now what I just did was I went over the vent meat. We're gonna get that using the blade. Right now we're just trying to get all the normal flesh off. Now that we're working in this smaller area, you're gonna want to turn your scraper to the small point, and so that way you can get in here into this real confined area and be able to flesh it properly. Try not to crush your rattle. If you push too hard and too fast, you will end up crushing and breaking your rattle. I do not recommend that. Come back through and pick, what I call bird pick fleshing, with that little flat piece. And please remember to continue down the track or scale lines. Don't ever go down reverse of the grain, because that will cause ripping and tearing. Looking pretty good here. This little scraper makes short work of the job. Now we're going to take the blade and we're going to cut off these little wings of flesh. Now we're going to want to angle our scalpel towards the tail, and we're going to be slicing and pushing at the same time. So we're pulling it back and pushing at the same time, kind of like a J. You will notice this is what we call a scale pop. That is fine. that's going to get fleshed off anyways. And now you've got it free. And proceed to the other side. And got another scale pop. There we go. Now your vent should be in the shape of a C. And that's what that little scale pop does. You want to try to pop that first scale of the vent off. It gives you a cleaner, more beautiful, elegant look. And there we have it. Now we're going to go through and do another bird pick just to make sure we've got all the flesh. And there's going to be some loose flesh like on your fingers. You could transfer to the hide. We're just going to try to get all that off. And while you're doing this, remember we left some of that flesh up here. We can go ahead and go from the center and push it off now. Like so. And just as a reminder, the reason why we're coming back and getting off all this flesh is the more soft and supple the tan will be, and your preservation will be a lot more along the professional line or professional grade. And continue pick fleshing. Just finding any of those little pieces that could potentially cause an issue later on down the line. You'll notice when your hide is more along the finished line, how your scales on your belly are staying open instead of curling. Down in here, they curl in because of the vent, but you can always check and make sure that you have all that flesh out of here. Yep, we're looking pretty clean. Couple little picks. So that'll conclude the skinning and fleshing portion. Make sure that you did go through and you made a nice flat line across the neck. Your belly scales are evenly spaced and you have your split down the center, and then that you popped your scales off the vent and then continued down the tail with the rattle either intact or off, your choice. Welcome back to the tanning process after we've done skinning and fleshing process of our rattlesnakes. Now we're going to start the salt bath. Essentially what this process is going to do, it's going to draw out the oils and the non-tannable proteins that the snakes do have, every animal has. So to do this process, what you need is some salt, and you're going to need 1 heaping tablespoon should I say, of salt per 16 ounces of water. The best way to do this to get it emulsified and combined, do your hot water, add your salt, get it emulsified and mixed in, and then let this cool before you put your hides in. If you put your hides in when they're hot, you will get scale slip and the hide will start to rot. We have this set up. We're going to take a tube skinned rattlesnake and that flat skin. Make sure you have enough water that these snakes can bob around and float and move freely away from one another. One of my favorites to do is I like to kind of open them up, make sure that all the areas are open, and I lay them in open so that way the salt starts on the inside and works its way out. Like so. Place into your salt bath gently and try to make sure that they're as open as possible. Now, if you're not quite ready to jump into the tanning process, what you can do to save your hides, you can take them and roll them up and put them in the freezer, and they'll keep like that for a couple of weeks. If it's going to be longer than a couple of weeks, then I would recommend that you add water and let them freeze with the water. So that way it prevents the dry rotting, freeze drying, and all the other bad things that come with freezing something for too long. This is the tube skin, and this one's already inside out, so we're just going to place it nice and gently, kind of bobbing and mixing until it is completely submerged. And you let this sit for roughly 2 hours or thereabouts 2 hours. Alright, and we're back. It's been about roughly 2 hours since we've had these in the salt bath. All we need to do now is just take and discard the salt mixture and rinse the snakes in fresh water, and then we can go ahead and get it into the tan bath. So I'm going to take these over to the back and get them rinsed. Be right back. And we're back. I've drained and rinsed the snakes, got them partially drying here just for the time being. We're going to mix up our solution. The solution ratio is going to be 3 tablespoons for a 3-foot snake. And since we got 2 of them, we're going to do 6 tablespoons. And now we're going to add some hot water to dissolve it and then cool it, and then we'll go ahead and put our snakes in the tan bath. For those of you who are wondering, this whole jar will produce enough tan for a 12-foot snake or multiple uses for smaller snakes. And there will be a chart that pops up to give you exact measurements for each footage of snake. We've got our snake tan solution ready to go. Just like we did with the salting, we're going to keep them open. You only need enough water to make sure that the snakes can free flow. Go ahead and add them into the mix. Try to push out any and all the air bubbles if you're getting too much floating. And all you gotta do to do that, just pull it down, give it a little wiggle, and your bubbles will come out. See? Like that guy. And then make sure that he's open to accept the tan. And then again, add nice and slow. Okay, just make sure that you move them around. This mixture is a stable mixture, so you don't need to keep mixing throughout the duration. All you gotta do is every now and then just kind of move the snakes. 14 to 16 hours. Mixing them or moving the snakes around every so often, every 4 or 5 hours. And then we'll be back when they're tanned. And we're back. We've been soaking these in our tan mixture for about 14 hours overnight. You can see that we have the tube skin out here, we have the flat skin here. All we're going to do now is we're going to oil. Let's get this guy out of the oil here. The process is just dab dry, no puddles on your skin. We're going to lay this skin out scale side up and apply our oil from there. You can see he's nice and stretchy. They've gotten plumped and they're tanned. So let's drain them off real quick. And just dab dry. Go on both sides. Get them nice and dry. You just kind of want them moist. You don't want the skin too dry or too wet. Just kind of keep it moist. the oil won't penetrate if it's too wet or too dry. So it's kind of like a Goldilocks, just right. And then we're going to lay him and give a little stretch, get him nice and flat. Unroll your belly scales. On the scale side, we're just going to do a light oiling. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. Look at that. Is that not a beautiful tan or what? Get them laid out, stretched out a little bit. Get those pores opened up. And then a light drizzle. Just a few drops down the scale of the snake. And go with the grain. You don't want to be going backwards and lifting up the scales. Need to get a little more here. And work that in there nice and deep. You'll notice that the oil will be all over your gloves. That's why I'm wearing them. And there we go. And then we're going to let that sit for about a half hour or so. And then we'll flip it over and go ahead and do an oil on that side. Alright, so now we're back. I've already oiled this side while we were waiting. It's been about an hour or so that we've oiled. Now we're going to hit on this side. It's very important to get more oil along the belly scales because it's thicker. So you want to make sure you treat that and take care of that the proper way. The cool thing about this system is you don't have to pin it like you would with the glycerin or any of the other methods out there. Until I came across this product, I was using the glycerin method or the denatured alcohol method, and they were coming out really crispy and not very fun to rehydrate and work with. So I started to just dry preserve, and I think this is a fantastic product, and I'm going to use it from now on. Glycerin will never cross my desk again. Another cool thing about this product is this actually tans the hide. Glycerin and denatured alcohol and the dry preserves, that's exactly what they are, preserves. They don't tan it, they don't turn it into leather. It's not as workable like I was mentioning before. So this is going to give you a nice, soft, supple, tan leather snake hide basically. Now it's important to remember that this flesh side is going to take more oil. I can't stress it enough. Make sure you get it on these edges, on these belly scales. So that way those don't get all crispy on you. With this, you don't need to pin. I think I've already mentioned that. Just let it sit. Work this in nice. I know it's going to be a little difficult, but try to work it in back in here as best as you can. I find that the little twist method kind of helps. And again, if you need to go backwards, real lightly over the skin. Add a little extra on this edge. And this edge as well. And work that in. Stretch. However you're going to have it here is how it's going to dry, and that's what your end result is going to be. So I'm going to make them a little wider, a little fatter, and a little prettier. Try to even up some of the edges. And then work that back into the edge. Alright, looks pretty good. Alright, now that I've worked this in, I'm just going to let this sit here. So now that we've got the flesh side oiled, we flipped it over and got it nice and straight. We're trying to get it to straighten out. You want the belly scales to not curl on you. That's what we're doing here, is just making sure that everything's straight and looking nice. Cool thing is, with this system, we don't have to pin or staple or any of that for our drying, which means you get more snake for your buck. You don't have to trim and do all that. Remember to try to keep it straight, as straight as you possibly can, because however you lay it out, that's the way it's gonna dry. And we're back. All the snakes are dry now. You can see this is the tubed one for taxidermy. Looks really nice. Pretty soft and supple and nice and stretchy. So now we're going to kind of talk about this one. You can see dried pretty straight. This one we're gonna keep like this, but for other steps that you can do to finish the snake, see, we're just gonna flat mount him. He's got the rattle on him. We're gonna do a nice panel mount. But for leather workers or bow makers or anybody that wants to use their snakes, they always talk about descaling. Anything that is going to be moving a lot, being pliable. Hat bands you don't really need to descale, but for wallets, boots, bow backings, stuff like that, things that have working and moving parts, go ahead and descale, because eventually your scales will fall off anyways. So what you're going to need is a coarse and a fine. The coarse is going to be for more of your belly scales, and the fine will be for popping these little guys off. When you're descaling, don't ever go against the grain and don't put too much pressure. If it's going to pop off, it'll pop off. If it won't, stretch it a little bit, get it moving, and then you might be able to pop it off or flick off the scale. So this is going to be one that we're going to be using for wallets or something along that line. So you just take your coarse and you run your coarse along your belly scale edge. And you'll see them slowly start to pop off. And in this process, you always want to run your outside edges first and then get in to your side scales and your belly scales. So this little end, I'm kind of barely rubbing along the first line of the side scales, just to kind of help loosen those up for when I go and continue through. Remember, you're not going back and forth on it. You go down, pick up, and go back down. There we go. Now they're starting to come off. Sometimes you need to kind of grab them and pull them away and then go down. Just got to kind of work at them and figure out which way that particular scale wants to come off. And you'll start seeing that you'll be getting a lot of little flaky scales everywhere. So now that we're done with that, we're going to run the fine steel wool. And for that, we're going to flip them back over this way. And real lightly just run down. You don't want to dig at them because you don't want to lift off the pigment. you will notice that there is going to be a color change. That's why you can also go with a matte or whatever finish on these. When you finish them, it will get a little darker, but you're trying not to go for a ghost pattern, unless that's the look you want. If you want the ghost pattern, press firmly. But we don't want the ghost pattern, so we're just going to lightly flick these off. And that's essentially kind of how you do that. So now, next step, we'll go ahead and get this cleaned up, and I'll show you the glossing and all that. See you in just a moment. And we're back. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do the gloss finish on this one here, and then we're going to do the matte finish on this one here. Make sure you have your mask. This is an inhalant. We don't want to mess with your breathing, and you don't want that either. You can go to any local hardware store, get these, pick them up for a few bucks. One thing I wanted to show you guys though is you can see how beautiful white that is. Like I said, this product actually tans the hide, not just preserves it. So there's a good stretch to it, and it's not crispy. It's actually tanned. It's leather now. So we'll go ahead and get into this and hit these real fast. To do your finishing, you don't want to like soak them. It's just a light coating, kind of helps to keep all the scales down if you're going to do a flat mount, which these are going to be flat mounts and hung up just for decoration. So this one, I think we'll do a matte finish on it. So we'll go ahead and shake up our mat. And remember, just a light coating. Nothing too crazy, just kind of spritz it. And what you're doing is you're going to be halving it. So you half, and then you half the other side. So that way you get kind of a double layer in the center. And that's really going to make those scales pop in your face. And then once we get that down, we're going to come back through and one more spritz down the center. And then let that dry. And same thing goes for this one here. Now the clear gloss, it's gonna look like it's wet for quite a while. Let it sit and dry. And then make sure you let that dry. One with that matte so it's a little bit more natural looking, and one with that gloss that really just makes it just pop. And we'll be back in just a little bit and show you guys at the end of the video with some pictures of how they came out. And we're back. We've let these go ahead and dry for a little while. This is that polyurethane gloss, and this is that really nice shiny finish, if that's what you're looking for. Then we have the matte finish. It's nice and pretty. Nice matte. Again, also if you wanted to. Those are optional. Here's the two snakes from the beginning of the video. This is that beautiful tan that we did. One of the things that I love about this, if you flip this over, you actually have an actual tan. The color has stayed. The belly scales haven't yellowed. They're gray and blues have stayed along the side scales. One thing I wanted to point out again was, remember that glycerin and alcohol that I talked about? Glycerin and alcohol will yellow and kind of make these scales a little bit more opaque. And then you kind of lose some of your color with that glycerin and alcohol. And same thing for this snake, he's kept his color all the way around. And if you look, he's nice and pearly, beautiful white tan. This is actually tanned. Like I said earlier, glycerin's never going to cross my desk again. One of the things I also wanted to mention that I absolutely love about this system, you don't have to pin it. With the glycerin, alcohol, and other preservative methods, remember those are preservatives, not tans, you don't have to pin this. Remember I said earlier, more snake for your buck. This will conclude the snake tanning video. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you have any questions, make sure to leave that comment below. Don't forget to tan that like button and go ahead and subscribe. Have yourself a good day, and I'll see you next time.